Good evening and welcome to this week's Roundtable. Today we're unpacking three major issues impacting our nation: crime, the rising cost of living, and healthcare. Now I know you must be wondering, but didn't you do that last week and the week before and the week before that? Yes, but sometimes when a topic is critical and crucial, we need to keep going over it and over and over to ensure that it sticks. These challenges are deeply felt, particularly by young people, and so we cannot put a time frame on how much we discuss it. Tonight, we're joined by two passionate voices. The first person, my first panelist, is none other than Joshua Harrow. You would have remembered him from last week. He's a former educator and a youth political advocate. Later on in the episode, we will introduce you to Cletuson, who is a youth and political activist. Together, we'll not only discuss these issues, but also explore actionable solutions. Let's begin with crime. Joshua, as someone who's deeply involved in youth advocacy, what do you believe is the driving surge in crime amongst young people, particularly young men?
There are quite a lot of factors. We can look at the psychological aspect of it. We can look at the family and how young people are being raised. We can look at the economy and the fact that, there's high rates of unemployment among the young people. Or we can look at education, the fact that many young people are leaving without the essential skills for them to enter the workforce, or a high dropout rate. There are several components that have led to a high rate of crime. We can even look at the culture of the music that is being played, or the visuals being represented in theater and on televisions of especially our young black men. So there's not just one factor, there's a plethora of them. But as we look at our society, many aspects would be the music, would be the family, would be educational opportunities, would be job opportunities, and availability of those components for the young people.
So would you say it's a systemic neglect? These are symptoms of systemic neglect of our young people, because I noticed you talked about the family, you talked about unemployment, you talked about education, even the music, because one would understand and appreciate some of the music that, especially dancehall. It's my understanding that certain dance hall music that is played, that is aired on our radio waves, are not even allowed in public in Jamaica, which is where the bulk of dancehall music comes from. Mm-hmm. So would you say that these are, or crime is a symptom of a systematic decay?
Yes. I mean, even when we look at the concept of music, studies have shown that if a mother plays classical music to the child while the child is in the womb, they begin to come out with a high intellectual capacity. I remember when I was in the US, my 5th grade teacher, she did a study on us where she played classical music when we did our exams, and we did much better than when she did not play the music. So music is not just a sense of, hearing and I like the vibe. It is an essence of the soul. It is vibration. It is rhythm that one connects to based on the emotional state of the person at that point in time. So if you're sad, they say you listen to Gopal music. If you're happy, you listen to happy music. If you're angry, you listen to angry music. You listen to music according to your state of mind, your state of being, and what represents your life at that current interval. So that's a major factor. Family. Are the fathers in the home? Are you being a good role model to those young boys? Are you teaching them right from wrong, good touch, bad touch, what you need to do to be successful, innovative, being different, showing them love and affection not based on societal standards but on family standards, because too often we try to love people according to what society says rather than who they actually are, and then we begin to manifest demons within our own household because we don't know who they are, because they have personality disorder, or they self are conflicted because they don't know who you want them to be. So these are several components that may lead to crime, psychological. This goes into the psychological. Education. Are we creating curriculums for our young men because they're very practical, they're very physical, they're very outgoing? Are we making sure that our lessons meet their attention span? Because you have various different types of learners. So rather than sit there and say they're not doing the work, do you understand that that child may have a different form of learning, that they may not be as inquisitive as another child and may require a different apparatus to operate on? So these are the things that we need to look at, and we're not looking at them. We just want to say the young people, why is there crime? Why are they joining gangs? Why are they not getting jobs? Look at the economy, look at the market, look at the rate of survival, and look at the fact that people with master's degrees cannot even survive or get a job in St. Lucia. So what do you expect from them?
So I hear you saying that the family, which is supposed to be the first teachers, they're supposed to be the fabric of society, is more or less dysfunctional.
Yes.
And as a symptom of that, we see crime coming up. Because as parents, we don't seem to understand our children. We don't seem to understand that we were a product of a dysfunctional society, of dysfunctional family, a dysfunctional home. And we do know that the pundits tell us that we learn as human beings by example. So I see mommy and daddy doing this, and then I will do this. How we speak. Oftentimes we hear, you really sound like your mom. You really walk like your because it's what we hear. It's what we see. And so the same thing would apply to learned behavior. We see things and we learn. And a lot of times we hear that our family, our parents set a foundation for us and we build on that foundation. So maybe our parents were not as dysfunctional as we are, but because we're building on that foundation, then we see that manifesting itself in young people.
Yes. I would like to say that young people's development and their criteria is habitual, which means that before you go to an educational institute, everything that you are and that you learn is based off of habit within the home. If you can think of it like language. Language is harder the older that you get. But it's when it's in its infancy, and when the child is in their infancy, they absorb it and they learn it. I remember there was a student who learned Spanish in their household. The entire component, they could speak it fluently. Then when they went to school, they were failing and they're wondering why, because they didn't learn the grammar aspect. They didn't learn the structural component of the Spanish language. They learned the traditional form that their parents spoke in the household. So then now it's kind of like that. When we teach our kids in the household, are we teaching them on par with the standards that are set in this world, or are we teaching them according to what we're accustomed to and what our grandparents and our great-grandparents have done? Poverty is not an excuse of bad behavior. And I say this, I've seen my parents work hard. My mom had a master. She was working in the restaurant and the hotels in the US. My father worked in the hotels here. And they raised me to be the best that I can be and to be a top personnel, to be able to speak on these platforms and articulate these points to the people of the nation. So it doesn't matter whether you're rich, you're poor, wherever you come from. The fact is that when you conceive a child in this world, you have a responsibility to provide law and order in that child's life so that they can grow up understanding right from wrong and also understanding the value of themselves, because you are the first line of defense for that child.
Now, I like the fact that you started talking about education and poverty, and a lot of times you talk about the failing educational systems. How, as a former educator, obviously you spoke about your mom having a master's degree and your dad being well educated and you yourself being on that path. How do you see this failing St. Lucian education system funnel youth towards crime? Many of our students come to school hungry, and you spoke about poverty. They come to school hungry and they have no support at home. And the schools can't always support or address these deeper issues. How, as a former educator, how do you see us being able to shift that and to pivot around school being a safe haven that can capture or act as a safety net for the home?
So first, we have to establish some level of psychological training for our teachers and to get them psychologically evaluated. I don't think people really understand how stressful it is to be a teacher, because whereas one parent will come there and you only have one child to maintain, I have a homeroom of 30 kids to maintain, and then a class with at least 200 kids in total that I have to look out for and help. So it's a lot on a teacher's plate. So firstly, we have to look at our institutions and how we build them. Many of them are still built in colloquial architecture that ends up gathering mold and some level of infestation that could be detrimental to the health aspect of our students. We need to look at digital education. Not every child is able to come to the classroom, but if we're going to provide laptops and some essential aspect of educational learning on a digital platform, we must make sure that we install our latest system, whether it be the ebooks, whether it be DigiGov, and we add an educational component to it, so that way the child is at home. Because we're installing community Wi-Fi's, let the child be able to access that from a human resource center or something in the community where they can access the educational platforms and see what the teacher has sent. So they may not be in the classroom physically, but it doesn't mean that they're not in the classroom. When students miss a certain amount of days for school, they're not allowed to graduate. We need to try and mitigate that. Some cannot come because of financial burdens that their parents face due to the current economic standpoint or generational afflictions that have hurt them in the past. So the child is paying for it. So we cannot limit the child from reaching the classroom because they don't have a physical uniform, they don't have bus fare. We need to change that. 2, allocation of extra funding to our school. It feels like our schools are fighting for funding because they're not receiving the essential funds to take care of their students. Because a lot of times students are coming with no money, no food, no anything, and teachers are giving out of their pockets from the menial salaries that they're already getting. So we need to try and transition that around. If we have an island-wide food school feeding program where we ensure all of our students get food, and then we give extra bursaries through the schools as well as through the ministry to ensure that all children are allowed to go to school, and then implement a government bus system where we go throughout the community, we pick up the students, we drop them off, and the expenses on behalf of us as the government, but we're ensuring that they're getting to school. We also need to do parenting workshops. We need to look for the parents who are not showing up to the parent-teacher conference. The parents need to also be held accountable for it. You cannot send your child to school and then for 3, 4, 5 years we don't see you at one meeting when we need you to come and address a situation with the child, we're not getting you, and then you come and scream and yell at us why your child is failing and why your child is disruptive, and then now this child now gets the impression that they can do whatever they want, say whatever they want, and the mother will come to the school and deal with us like we are the issue when we're trying to mitigate a situation. And another thing is management costs. We need to teach admin how to be proper managers, how to work with their teachers, how to work with their students, and have a proper fluid structure going in place instead of teachers feeling like they cannot talk to admin and admin feeling like teachers are not working. Teachers are working, and they're working harder than they need to deal with problems that should have been dealt with ahead of time by the government, by the parents, and by the admin.
So what I hear you saying is that without holistic intervention, programs, social programs, and mental health support, even, you didn't mention that, but it occurred to me that if a child is missing school, coming in school, having issues at home, that there will be some sort of mental issues, mental health issues, and we have a lot of students, they go to bed with their parents quarreling, they wake up in the morning with their parents quarreling, and then lack of sleep, and then they're expected to leave home and go to school and function in this kind of high pressure circumstances because the teachers themselves not understanding the background, the home situation put pressure on these students to perform in school. We're talking about job opportunities, right, for parents as well as perhaps young people when they leave school. That there will always be vulnerable criminal activity within young people. Now, you spoke about something about parents not being present at parent-teacher conferences. Do you know that there are some schools that don't have parent-teacher associations? They don't have the PTs. And even though that there are parents who want to participate, they are excluded from participating fully because there isn't that parent-teacher association. And 2, you mentioned also that there are parents who are in conflict and teachers too who are in conflict with administrators. And I'm saying there is, to my mind, I've always said that there is a disconnect when we take our best teachers from the classroom and put them as administrators in the you know, as principals or head teachers and that kind of thing, you're disadvantaging your students. You're disadvantaging your school when you take those teachers out of the classroom. And teachers retire at age 60. When this is, to my mind, this is the best time that they can become administrators, because they've had maybe 30, 40 years of teaching experience, because a lot of our teachers started young. Maybe that's their first job, that was their vocation. So they came in at 20, 18, 20. So by the time they're 60, they have a plethora of a wealth of information that they can pass on to the students, that the community can benefit from, that the teachers themselves can benefit from, the parents can benefit from, and they're taken out from a platform or a circumstance where they can perform the best and put in as an administrator. How do you see that compounding the situation?
Even when we look at, let's say we take some of our elder teachers and we make them admin, there's still going to be a large gap between our admin and our youth, because as much as we may want those with the experience, we would also want those who are able to relate to the young people. And too often there are times when there are elders who come in the system and they feel like they know it all, they are all, you know, they've been in the system for so long, they've seen it in and out. And these type of individuals now, if you have young teachers coming in and you're that type of administrator, then there's going to be a disconnect between you and the young teachers, and then there's going to be a disconnect between you and your students. Because when now a situation arises in the school, your staff and your students must be able to feel as though they have comfort coming to you and you're going to address it in a proper and respectable manner. But if you're in an institution where your staff and your students do not like you or don't respect you, but you just have the title because you are the principal, then what's going to happen is that you're going to have a major disconnect between you and your executive body and you and your student body, and there's going to be some level of retaliation that occurs between you and the parent and the teacher and the teacher and the student, and some level of chaos will begin to brew because there's no established line of effective communication.
You spoke about respect. And you would have remembered that last week that I spoke about a situation in my community of Labrie where young people were in conflict with the police, to the point where a young man of unstable mind was shot by the police. To me, I think it boils down to respect. When police officers are conducting or executing their duties, the encounters with young people is very instructive. If you come to, it's not like back in the day when I was growing up, where police officers were revered. We were scared of the police. We had that fear, and that translated into respect for the police. But we have a different dynamic. Presently, we have a different dynamic where fear does not translate to respect.
True.
And if in engaging the public in dispensing your duties, you're slapping people around, you're beating them up, then you're not going to earn their respect. And what you're going to have is a retaliatory young population. How do you think that the law enforcement has created an effective strategy in tackling crime with regard to young people? And is it reactive or preventative in your opinion?
Honestly, I haven't seen anything from them that has given me confidence. Because I'm going to say this honestly, and sure people will say I'm wild for saying this, but I don't think that there's any respect between the police and the youth. And the police who do have respect for the youth and the youth who do have respect for the police officers, these are the ones that are leaving the police force. Those who are there currently, I think that there is an assumption that I am a person of authority, I have power, I have a weapon, you move. When I tell you to move, you move. I don't think we've understand that young people are the most reactive people in society. Even by the tone of your voice, the way that you move, the way that you speak and how you approach them, they're very reactive and they're on. So back in the day, yes, you used to fear the police officers. They had the guns because at that point in time, accessing a weapon would be hard. It would be very difficult. Now, young people, they don't care anymore. They don't care if you're the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. They don't care who you are, because some of them are now understanding themselves and their worth. So you can be in a big position and feel like you're high and mighty. That doesn't mean anything to them, because now our young people have access to information. So the level of perception has changed. The level of access to resource has changed. The level of education has changed. So as an officer, you come there with your gun, it's not going to make any difference to the young people. They're still going to stand up and they're still going to fight for what they believe in, because they refuse to be bullied. Young people today refuse to be bullied, and now they're in a reactive state where if they feel like you are a threat, they will attack. Like these canines, if they see you as a threat, they will jump and they will take you down. So they're no longer running. It's no longer flight. It is fight.
This is a good point for us to take our first break. And I said, Lucia, this roundtable, we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. We're going to be taking a little bit more breaks because we want to deal with solutions at the end of our discussion. So we'll take a break here, but I like where we're ending. Bullies no longer are children in a classroom. Bullies at school grow up to be adults in positions who feel that they have to cower people to earn respect and to get their job done, to make themselves look good. We'll take a break, but when we come back, more on the topic of youth perspective on crime, rising cost of living, and healthcare. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Dominic Fede, representing the constituency of Ancillary Canneries, and really my candidacy for this election is about bringing out the best in the constituency. We've accomplished some 15 inner community roads together. When I look at the cemetery road and I think of women coming to a funeral in high heels and had to bring 2 pairs of shoes because of the mud. Those days are gone. We built the HRD center and we have had some 200 individuals who have been trained within the first few months of opening. We want to build more houses. We want to help more of you. We want to create more jobs. And some of the ideas that we have include a call center in the constituency where, when completed, would generate some 400 to 600 jobs. When I look at the Ancillary Waterfront project, the jetty is going to be extended. A mini hotel is already at the ground floor and being built. The square is being redone. There's a restaurant in the location of the old community center building. This is going to transform the Ancillary Waterfront. The drain around the field has been much talk, and it's been an eyesore, and it has been a source of much discomfort to the people of Ancillary. But I am happy to tell you that after fighting hard for it together, we are now in a position where the drain is being built. I'm asking you to support us because I'm convinced that we have the superior vision for St. Lucia. So if you're from Canneries Ancillary, then you know you have to stay with Fede. Let's keep working.
Welcome back to the round table. With me this evening are 2 young youth and political activists, I'd like to say. Joining us in this segment is Cletuson, and he, like I said, is a youth activist, a political activist, and from the community of Babonneau. In our last segment, we spoke about the rising crime, not just being about bad choices, but about being a systemic or a symptom of systemic decay. Many young people feel abandoned, unemployed, undereducated, and unsupported. Cletuson, we'll start with you this segment. When you grow up in poverty and see no way out, does crime seem to start to look like maybe a survival mode, action, because you grew up in poverty, you don't have, you see your friends at school, in the neighborhood having, and you don't have. Do you see that poverty enables crime as a survival mode?
Mm-hmm. Well, good night. Thank you for having me on the show tonight. In my opinion, it does, because everyone, you look at it like they want fast money. Some of them might not be educated, or they don't have the means to be educated, so they're jealous of what their friends have, and they look at crime as in whether it's dealing drugs or robbing someone as a faster way of getting money, especially if they come from a family where they don't have that stability, their mindset is poor, they have no one to back them up or support them in their life, and it's really easy to show that that poverty could initiate them being involved in crime.
Now, earlier today, this morning, there was a shooting in your community.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an ongoing thing? Recently, Babano has really been in the spotlight,
Mm-hmm.
Indiscriminate shooting of young men,
Mm-hmm.
and with no regard to environment, whether it's a young man picking up his daughter, whether it's a drive-by, friends just sitting on a stoop, reasoning and talking and, socializing, and, there comes this motorcycle or car spraying bullets. How does that make you feel as a young man growing up, reasoning with young people in the community, seeing this kind of behavior being perpetrated in your community?
Well, I mean, as a young person myself, and just generally young people that's involved in this type of stuff, that's dying or committing the crimes, I mean, I feel bad because we as young people, we have a lot of potential. We have a lot of potential, but we don't have the accessibility to show that potential that we have. So when a lot of guys are unemployed, they have a lot of free time on their hands. And like we said, it comes to the same thing about they want fast money. They want to join the gangs. They want to join the bad company. And what's going on in Babano, it's been going on behind the scene for years, but I think really now it's starting to worsen and getting outlawed. So there's a lot of payback happening. That's what they say, it's payback. Or it's you stole something from me, so now I'm not going to steal something from you, but I'd rather take you out of the earth completely. But I mean, it's really disgusting to see what's going on, but hopefully one day we could solve that problem.
So what I hear you saying is that this thing has been brewing, and no attention or hardly any attention has been paid. Because I find a lot of the times with rural communities in particular, we spend less time policing our people in the rural communities. I know for the South, we do, like in my community library, we spend less time policing our people because, hey, we grew up with maybe old-fashioned values, but our children are becoming more and more educated, and they're being exposed to maybe not necessarily a St. Lucian way of doing things, but we're more exposed to an Americanized system, and we're exposed to all of those things. We want things, we see things on television, and we see life imitating art. Do you think more community policing, youth outreach, and rehabilitation programs for petty offenders will assist in curbing violent crimes? I will have you answer that, and then Joshua, you'll chime in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that could be done. There's workshops that could happen. I mean, the police could get themselves more involved, I think, in what's going on, where they could educate young people about crime. I mean, we have a lot of activists around that could come speak to the young people. Former criminals who's changed their lives as well could come to speak to the young people that we have out there to help prevent the crime from happening. And I mean, it also comes to trying to get them more job opportunities. See where they minor at, see what talents they have, see what skills they possess, and see where you could fit them in society so that they may become better people.
I think the concept of rehabilitation is one that we must explore. Too often there are people with petty misdemeanors who are prevented from getting a job because of a situation sometimes they themselves were not even part of, but they were just in the wrong company at the wrong time and got taken down. And now they cannot get a job because of a petty offense or a minor offense, and they are left on the streets. So it's not the fact that we don't have people who are coming from jail who are not rehabilitated, who haven't gone through the program, who haven't, because I mean you can get your CXCs in jail, you can do courses and stuff in, so they do come out with their certifications, they do come out rehabilitated, but because they have those things on their records, they're not given a job. So I think we as leaders, as government officials, must work to creating a consensus with our businesses on creating workshop and plans to reinstitute persons who have come out of jail and gone through the necessary rehabilitation practices so that they can be effective citizens. Because if you just came from jail or you have a petty offense and you cannot get a job, even though you're trying, obviously you're going to go back and do the exact same thing over again. Two, the concept of work. Somebody, let's say, selling drugs or dealing drugs and they making a cool 10 grand or 20 grand versus them getting a job that's a 9 to 5, only paying them petty cash. They're going to take the drugs. Two, some people don't see it as a crime, they see it as a job. So I have this shipment, I have this coming in, it's a job. So they have the perception of a job. But the question is, what do we really consider work and a job? Because remember, marijuana used to be illegal. And they're legalizing it now. It's $1 billion.
Decriminalizing.
Well, decriminalizing, I should say. Then people are now making money off of that. The perception of it now is changing. They're using it in medication and people are finding ways to make money, but it's being managed in a way where it's not exposed to the public just generally. Right. You need to have proper licenses and proper applications for it. It's the same way with our culture. There are things that we need to change and we need to adopt. We need to change the way that we see people who have made a mistake, and we need to change the way that we allow them to come back into the workforce and get their lives back on track. If we keep having a label on people who have offensive and keep saying the child that do this, the child that do that, and we keep putting the onuses on these individuals, then they're going to live according to those labels for the rest of their lives. And the people who are committing the offenses are the people we've already labeled as the bad eggs.
So I hear you saying a lot of things, and I want to touch on a few. Cletuson, you spoke about activists speaking and former criminals speaking and police speaking. Do you think that this could be, and either of you could answer this, do you think that this is part of the problem? We have a speak culture and not an action culture. So we speak. We have all these symposiums on crime and all of those caucuses on crime and all of this, but we don't see sufficient action coming out of it. Even in government, we have about 3 ministers dealing with crime. We even have a crime prevention minister, but we don't see any action coming out of that. Do you think, therefore, the situation is we are too speak-centric and not enough action-centric?
Okay, well, in my opinion, I would completely agree with that statement, that we go on news every day or we talk to each other every day about we tired of the crime, but really and truly nothing is being done to solve it. In my opinion, I'll give, for example, the shooting that happened on the square recently. I mean, we understand police can't be everywhere at the same time, but I do feel like we have enough police in the city to be patrolling. So it could be simple stuff like that could prevent crime from happening. And in terms of activists speaking to the young people, I believe it's part has to play on the government as well to just help provide the jobs for the young people. I mean, you could fit them in so many instances. I mean, I know people that came up from the gutter with plans and went to a specific minister and she turned him down. I mean, if it was someone who has a bad mindset, I mean, it will completely take him back to criminal activities or back to the streets, and he's just trying to look for a way out for himself.
We are a very ignorant and complacent nation. We speak more than we act. we make noise. They say empty vessels make the most noise. It feels like St. Lucia is an empty vessel because we make a lot of noise, but we don't have much movement nor stability when the storm comes. How do we say that we want change and then we're harboring the people who are causing the issues? That's like saying you want to deal with the crime problem, but you're harboring the criminal. That's like saying at the end of the day you want better for St. Lucia, but you're refusing to come out and take part in the protest for gas. That's like saying you want your child to have a great education, but you're not willing to listen to the teacher. You cannot ask for something that you're not willing to do. And it's simple as that. You can go on DBS, on Street Vibes, and make all the noise all you want. But you're just making useless noise and then now asking the government to do things that you as a community can come out and do yourselves. Community watch, neighborhood watches, all of these different things. You can do it as a community. You don't have to always call the police and go. Do it yourself and show people united we stand. But when you don't show them united we stand, we're divided, we are falling.
You said something that said, and you said when, and that resonated with me because you said it's like wanting your child to have the best education but disagreeing with the teachers. It's like wanting to end criminality but you're harboring the criminals. But we do have a government who is harboring criminals, don't we? I mean, we have a minister who we were educated as a nation on why he was the worst thing to have ever happened to St. Lucian politics. His visas were removed, and we were educated on why those visas were revoked, you know. And we were told why visas have been revoked. Visas are revoked because of money laundering and drug dealing and all of that. All of this implied that the minister have been engaging in those activities, and yet we turn around because it's convenient and expedient and make him a junior minister in none other than the Prime Minister's office. And again, we have junior members of staff who are on record as threatening members of society to kill them, threaten them with death over whatever deal went wrong. And we continue to harbor these people in government. So what do we expect when our young people are privy to that and they see that and they're exposed to that? What do they think? How do they feel that, you know, their perceived criminal activities are supposed to be dealt with?
It's you can't have a criminal deal with a criminal. Then you just both are in jail fighting each other, which is what Helen has become, a jail for many people. And we're just fighting each other. Because at the end of the day, you have a person who Compton himself said they don't want that person. But y'all chose them, so here we are. And a couple years later, we still have this issue. I think that we have to get it aware as a nation about our constitutional duties as citizens and our rights, because we believe that there are people who are in power that we must fear. The biggest person that you must fear is a united nation, because at the end of the day, no matter how many bullets you have, no matter how much backing you have, you cannot deal with 180,000 upset people who want you gone, because then you will be gone. But as a nation, we live too much in fear and say, me, I don't want to deal with that. Me, I don't want nothing to do with that. Me, I keep my hands clean because I know how them fellas are. But if you know how it is, you know what it is, and you understand the situation that is and can be, why would you not be invested in redeveloping your nation for your children and yourself and get the people out who are causing the plague in the first place? Because that's a representation of us internationally. Imagine you have a criminal in government going around as a minister to other nations, and then the word gets out. That does not look good as a nation.
Well, the rest of the world knows because the visas were revoked, and our closest ally in the Western world is the United States of America. I mean, we clearly remember how our hands were tied because the levy law was levied against us, and how our police officers couldn't get the training, couldn't get the support of the US of A. So the rest of the world is watching and they are aware. You want to chime in on that?
I'll completely agree with Joshua, because like you said, united we stand. One or two people speaking about crime or speaking about any problem that's happening in the society will not work. Now we became a society that's afraid of criminals. We're afraid to speak up because we're afraid of the repercussions. But like Joshua said, if we have enough people, a support group, as in we stand as a nation united to speak about and to show that we care about what's going on in society, I mean, the criminals will not walk over us eventually. We should not be scared to stand up for ourselves as a nation. And that's something I think we as St. Lucians need to work on.
I like the way that you guys are using the word united, subliminal messages here. We need to be united as a nation. But what I really hear you saying is that deeply rooted systemic failures can really, really embed crime in our society. Yeah? Now, a little earlier, Joshua, you spoke about marijuana being decriminalized. Do you think that we are making sufficient leverage on the decriminalization of marijuana? I mean, there's so much that could happen. There's so much that leverage that there is to have on maybe, now say, Lucia, let me make it lucidly clear. You know I'm a church girl. You know I'm a church girl, but I am also a St. Lucian, and I'm for my country. And I do know that if we have a problem, we have to find a way to be a part of the solution and not be a part of the problem. If it is that we can leverage cannabis, not necessarily the THC, but we can leverage cannabis into an industry that can help us reduce the cost of living. All of the soaps that we buy and import into this country, we can have a thriving cannabis industry that can help us with product industry. Cannabis, we're looking at soaps, we're looking at deodorants, we're looking at lotions, we're looking at fabric. These are all the things that we import into this country, causing us to have a high importation bill, whereas we can help ourselves. We oftentimes we hear, buy what you grow, grow what you use. Our Prime Minister said it to us once: grow what you eat and eat what you grow, or watch what you eat and eat what you watch. Something like this, some stupid archaic thing. But let us take out the salient points out of that. Can we leverage a cannabis industry, in your perspective, from a youth perspective, leverage that to assist us in reducing the cost of living?
I think that's one aspect. We have to watch that the cannabis movement is a billion-dollar industry, multi-billion-dollar industry from the time that it has been decriminalized in the United States, and you have sufficient regulations and monitoring of the use of it, then it is working. You can use it for pharmaceuticals, especially for persons who suffer with asthma. I know that was one remedy of it.
Pain management.
And so much so it can be used. The thing about it is, it's how you use it. And once you regulate that, you can have a sufficient and a billion-dollar industry. Because there are many people now who are in jail for these misdemeanor offensive of having cannabis on them, and they were arrested, which means that they will be free of those charges. They will be eliminated of these charges, and they can go and work and make money doing what they're doing. So it's killing two birds with one stone, but at the same time opening ourselves to many markets just beyond the US and the pharmaceutical industry, which is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And it can also help us create the necessary drugs for our people in the hospitals who are going through the pain, so we don't have to deal with this medication shortage that we have now under this administration.
So it's a good way to segue into our next break, because we're due for a break. But I love the way we're ending here. We're touching on two of our other segments. We're touching on healthcare, we're touching on rising cost of living, and a possible solution to decreasing the cost of living in this country. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
I am Harrow Stanislas, your United Workers' Party candidate for Soufre Font-Saint-Jacques. One of the main campaign promises which I made in 2016 was the Hummingbird Beach So this project have significantly benefited the people of Soufrière as entrepreneurs and created many sustainable jobs. Another project which I'm very proud of is the Old Trafford complex. This again was another campaign promise to build a farmers market for the farmers of Soufrière-Font-Saint-Jacques and the vendors. And today we've been able to deliver a first-class farmers market combined with a bus terminal, the only one of its kind in St. Lucia, to the people of Soufrière-Font-Saint-Jacques. Another project which we promised the people of Soufrière-Font-Saint-Jacques that we were going to deliver to them was the Esperance Diamond Road. After 40 years, they are finally getting a new road connecting Font-Saint-Jacques and Soufrière through Diamond. We have undertaken a comprehensive major rehabilitation of the Soufrière Mini Stadium to make it a world-class sporting facility. We have some very critical projects, critical interventions, which we would like to see take place in Soufrière in the next 5 years. So one priority project for us in the new term is going to be the construction of a Soufrière community cultural and theatre arts center. We also want to focus on housing, and therefore we want to concentrate on opening up parts of the constituency where you could have housing development, housing schemes, where we can make lots available to the young people of Soufrière-Font-Saint-Jacques. Vote for me as your candidate, your next parliamentary representative, and I can assure you that Soufrière is going to continue on the trajectory of progress, growth, development, empowerment, and opportunities for all. Performance matters. Let's keep working.
Harrow the best lap. I know a lot of man, but Harrow is the best one. Mokoneta shine up. Harrow the best.
Welcome back to the round table. I swear sometimes the discussion off air are sometimes more scintillating than the discussions on air. But before we went on break, guys, we were talking about the rising cost of living and how we can pivot a decriminalized or maybe even a legalized cannabis industry into helping with the rising cost of living. Now, Joshua, you have worked with families as an educator and seen the impact of financial strain. How does the rising cost of living affect young people and their families? And how can we pivot those young people who see selling a 5-bag on the corner as an industry that they can be a part of without the criminal aspect of it?
So, firstly, we have to look at the economy. We need to look at redeveloping our economy to a modern era. And that's why I say digitalization by innovation. You have many jobs now where you can work from home. So we as a government, Home Affairs or whatever, whichever department it might be, can go and assess the family, go and assess the home, go and assess the structure. If we realize that the family is living in a derelict structure, we can look at local government and housing and figure out a way to develop this house so the family has a home. Install a Wi-Fi system, make sure we provide not only the child but the mother with a laptop. Go to our schools, make sure that they're digitally innovated so the teachers now can record the lessons in the class and put it up for the students to learn if they don't have the financial means to come to school, and ensure that the mother can make money from home, the child can learn from home, but nobody's ever missing out on life. We create community programs and initiatives to make sure that the child is always active in some youth activity. We have a monitoring system for social workers, a youth worker or officer to make sure that the child is there doing what they're supposed to. Even truant officers. I don't know if we have truant officers in St. Lucia.
Last I checked, we had one for the north, one for the south.
Well, we need multiple. This is a constituency. Cashews has 65,000 people.
17 constituencies, at least 17 truant officers.
So make sure that we monitor this. Let's create government incentive buses so that they know 7 o'clock or 7:30 the buses will be parked in this location. All children must be on them, and we stop by the various schools. We as a government, as a nation, must take in the proper precautions and incentives for not only the parents but for the children, because some people are in situations that they cannot come out of due to unforeseen circumstances beyond their control.
What's your view?
And in just to add on what Joshua was saying, and I think also the ICT centers we have around, I don't think they're doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, we have these centers, there's laptops, printers. I mean, it's not only for kids to come to do their homework because they don't have access. What are they learning when they come into the ICT center? What workshops are we providing? I mean, we could start job trainings from young, teach them how to write a resume.
Summertime, how are we leveraging those ICT centers to keep the kids off the streets,
Right.
because your parents are still working
Right.
during the summertime, even while the children are on vacation.
Right. So like I was saying, at that young age, you teach them the basics of life in the ICT center. Basic workshops, how to do a job interview, how to dress for a job interview. I mean, all that could instill purpose in their head, like, when I get older, I'm prepared for life. But we don't do enough of that in St. Lucia.
A quick question.
Real quick. That can also, another means that we can make sure that they do add that as extra credits to their SAAFA or to their secondary school to give them some form of reasoning to want to come and do it. And then now we add extracurricular activities after school, which are mandatory. CVQ time, 3 o'clock, you're in the school, you go and learn some form of training so you're off the streets. Summer, you continue your CVQ program, and then now you do these little trainings that will add on to whatever credits that you need to go to SAAFA. It makes your education there shorter, but it makes you be more practical in society
And helps you be more critical in the choices and the decisions that you make. But I have a quick question. Let's segue. Something that popped in my head. As a young person, let's just assume that you are coming from depressed homes. Would you prefer to live in a ghetto where you have standalone cabins? When I say standalone cabins, I mean a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, a facility, without maybe running water, potable water, without maybe in-house toilet facilities, or in apartment building where multiple families are living. You share certain facilities. Maybe you have a gym in the bottom. Maybe you have whatever, a laundry facility in the bottom, or shed facilities, but you have a comfortable home in maybe a 2-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom apartment, or an upgrade. Let's put it this way: an upgrade from what passes as apartments in the CDC.
So basically, what they built in Dennery versus an apartment. I'm taking
Great analogy, great visual. Thank you for saying it. I didn't want to put it out there, but yes,
what they built
basically.
in Dennery, but I'm taking the apartment. I can share. I don't do laundry every single day of the week, so in my little space there, I'll take the apartment.
Yeah, because think about it. You don't have to open up your clothes out there in.
Right.
And we do know that there are guys who are sitting in jail for snatching panties off of the line. Your children are safe because you are. It's not a village, but you still have a community. Right. You still have a secure building where you go in. When you go in, if you're not living in that building, you're locked outside.
Yeah, right.
Somebody has to let you in from inside. Has to let you in.
Communities.
Right. You can. A poor man's gated community. Who says gated communities has to be for the rich only? It can be for depressed communities as well. You want to keep the bad influences out and keep your children and your elderly safe inside. So I take it both of you would opt for that option, because a lot of the times we make issue of making each St. Lucian have own a piece of St. Lucia. So make it a big thing, but can we maintain the piece of St. Lucia, and what's the size of the piece of St. Lucia that we can afford? Because we do know that DCA says for a house to be adequately encompassed or built, you need at least 5,000 square foot of land. How many of us can afford 5,000 square footage of land to build maybe a 1,000 square footage of home? Or even a 500, because some of us just really cannot afford.
I agree with that sentiment, and I feel like even let's go a bit further. Let's do condos. And rather than having to pay for the land and the building, you're just paying for a section of housing that you own for the rest of your life. It will help mitigate a lot of the cost, but you have a feel of your actual own home that is yours. You don't have to pay rent and these.
And you can use it as a mortgage to get, further your education or your children's
that will
education.
also add to the thing of getting rid of our derelict buildings, people who are living in poor structures, and part of the beautification of cash trees and enhancing the experience of people who don't feel like, we're only doing it for the rich, but the poor get a sense of culture that feels like they are rich and they're cared for.
So not only are you dealing with the cost of living, but you're also living with the standard of living. Now, as you mentioned, condos, did not a certain junior minister in the Prime Minister's office promise condos in cul-de-sac such that even gas station attendants can afford them?
I feel bad about that. I live in cul-de-sac. I'm from cul-de-sac. I haven't seen anything in cul-de-sac. We're still waiting for the finished community center.
But let's go back to our substantive topic. We were talking about decriminalizing or legalizing cannabis such that persons can enjoy and make it economically viable. It would help to reduce our cost of living because we'll be reducing on our importation bill and perhaps even increasing our exportation bill because we now are going to have more products that we can export to the wider world. We have a product that if we can decriminalize it and we can have the proper legislative framework around it, that we can have, now don't come for me, ganja planters who are within a structure, that a system where we can now provide a product to big pharma.
Right.
That's true. And it will help us keep our young, because you have fellas in jail for 5 bag and little misdemeanor offenses like that. And then you're putting them in the same cell with murderers and violent persons. And then it's like when they come out, it's like you're breeding the aggression and then wondering why we have crime. These little misdemeanor offenses can be dealt with. These are small things that can be put on the side. And for 5 bag, when you have a sustainable industry like the cannabis industry, this is a way a young man can make money and create new medicine and new things that we can help for our people, because people like Bush.
Yes.
We like that. So it's a way for us to experience and research and develop and create some critical thinking and scientific analogies, and even put that in our system where we have our young children going and find ways to look at the properties of it and see what we can do. So we're not just expanding the point of the economy, but education and critical analysis and understanding of the potential of this industry.
Because a lot of people underestimate the minds of young people. Young people are creative.
Very, very creative.
You have no idea how they could legalize marijuana or put it in a structure where it's being monitored, and what young people could do with it. I mean, you listen to older people speak, especially older men, they will tell you, I'm not going to no doctor for no medicine. They don't want pills. We have no idea what marijuana could offer yet. Anxiety, some people take it for anxiety, depression, all that could help. And I feel like young people could explore the means of marijuana and make good use of it.
Well, I can tell you, I have a degenerative disc in my spine, and when this thing is bothering me, I suffer from sciatica pain. And I was speaking to a church brother, and he said, boy, he called me aside after church one day, and he said to me, if I give you a remedy for that pain, will you take it? I said, at this point, now mind you, my spine has formed an S. This is how painful this thing is. And when I'm in pain, I contort my body in a shape to ease the pain. So my spine forms an S. And I said to him, at this point, I'll try anything. He said, you'll try anything? I said, I'll try anything. He said, you will not try anything, because what I am going to give you, the remedy I'm going to give you at this point in St. Lucia is illegal. And I said, I will try anything. And when he told me, he gave me and I had to do, I'm not ashamed to say it, it had to do with cannabis. I was like, whoa, how am I going to get this? How am I going to acquire it such that I can ease the pain. And let me tell you, I was willing to try. Luckily for me, I had one of a friend who is a sports therapist help me with managing the pain. And I'm glad to say, thank you, Spider Montut. Thank you very much. I have not had any pain since I visited you and you helped me with that issue. I know that the issue is still there because it's a degenerative disc. It will never go away. It's there for life. But since I went to Spider Montut, I have not had that issue. I thank you very much for that. But I was willing to try the remedy that he'd given me, and it involved that. So, it just goes to show one issue that we have vilified and made the villain of our existence can not only help us with our standard of living, because it brings down our cost of living, but also with our health care.
And I bet that's something you would never...
I would have never thought about it.
Yeah.
I would have never, because I had never, up to that point, given marijuana a thought other than it's illegal, and I'm not a smoker, so
Right.
A lot of things used to be illegal, like black people sitting at the front of the bus, and
Yes.
sometimes you have to, be the person who charges in and takes the risk to show
Initiate
people.
change,
Because the
yeah.
biggest problem with marijuana, people think, is the smoking aspect.
Yes.
Because when the smoke gets into the lung and all the tar and all the buildup, that's the issue that they see. But they don't see the other aspect that it can actually work in a different way other than the smoking.
Because we only educate our people on the bad stuff. We don't educate them on what good it can do.
well,
Yes.
that opened the floodgates for me, because then I started doing more research, because this is, and mind you, this is a person that I would have never thought would have offered that as a potential solution to the problem that I had, knowing that he also had an issue, and his younger brother was the one who introduced that. Mind you, the younger brother does not reside in St. Lucia anymore, and had been exposed to that kind of research. And so I did a lot of research, and I realized that, hey, we are sitting on a gold mine here. And I'm not saying that it is without negative effects. I'm not saying that at all. But with everything, there's good and there's bad.
bad.
Cigarette smoking is legal.
But it's very bad
And it's
for
very
you.
bad. It's even-
Cancer.
Very
It's
detrimental.
even worse than the marijuana itself.
Very detrimental. And when you tell me you could spend $20 on a box of 20 cancer sticks,
Smoking like
and I don't know that tobacco has any good side effects,
and it's legal everywhere.
and it is legal.
One of the biggest industries in the world.
When you can tell me you can spend $20 on a bottle of rum, and we know what can happen with rum, I think it behooves us to investigate a cannabis movement, a cannabis industry, and how we can leverage that into not a criminal activity, but to employing our young people, employing our farmers, giving them, we talk about crop diversification, getting in foreign investment, because we know all the big farmers, they're into this and they want good strains. And if we have an industry that is regulated, maybe we can weed out all of the bad things and keep the good things. And I'm not being naive, and I'm not saying that there's not going to be potential harmful rogue black market farmers and purveyors of cannabis, but maybe the good outweighs the bad.
Right.
I mean, rather than doing the bad in the dark, at least we know the bad can be done in the light, and we can still tackle it.
Right.
Than things that we cannot see and we don't know for ourselves.
Okay, so we'll take a break here, and when we come back, we will deal with more on healthcare and how we can make healthcare affordable, and why more young people don't go to the doctor. Stay tuned.
Madam President, I think it's important to make the point that Today, we're borrowing $152 million. And year to date in this financial year, when we look at the various order papers that we have analyzed in the House, and my colleague did a very fantastic job in doing that, she did so for the calendar year, we see that year to date, it's over $400 million that this administration would have borrowed, coming here on separate occasions to borrow money.
If you're going to grow your country, you have to grow the capacity. You have to make sure they're healthy. You also have to make sure they're well educated. But that takes a plan. It takes a commitment. And it's not about just words. It has to be much more significant. And I have not heard anything here today, Mr. Speaker, that would give me any comfort, nor should it give any other St. Lucian comfort, that they're going to use this opportunity they found on their lap appropriately, and to make sure that the young people of this country and the workforce of this country are going to get jobs that they can make careers of, jobs they can raise their families on, jobs in which, yes, they can become international and raise their own standard of living. That should be the aspiration. I did not hear any of that today, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Welcome back to the Roundtable. Be honest. This has been an amazing discussion so far. We've talked about health, we've talked about crime and the interconnectedness of crime and healthcare and rising cost of living. Both of you have highlighted how the three topics we're discussing today are interconnected. But let's now focus on actionable solutions. What can be done immediately to address crime? Let's start with you, Cletuson.
Immediately to address crime, I would say, number one, more police patrolling around the city or other places that they can. Activists talking to our young people, and like my priest always says, we need to walk the walk and not talk the talk. Have more activities within our communities, more workshops, sporting activities specifically. You know, most guys are into football. I mean, every month or two, I mean, we could have a couple tournaments, cash prizes, get them involved in some clubs, after school activities, and I think that's something that could help reduce crime.
I share the same sentiments as Cletuson. I think that we need to look at our football league and up the price of the pay for our professional footballers so that they can actually be compensated properly for the amount of work that they're doing. We need to initiate CVQ training after school for our students to keep them active, summer school programs so that they can get ahead of their studies and keep them predominantly active during the summer seasons, maybe not for the whole day, but maybe 3 or 4 times in the week. Do internal investigations from an external authority into government and our police force. I think that our commissioner should be an external body so that we can purge the system of the corruption and the problems that we have, especially when you have somebody who's a sexual offender still being the assistant commissioner of police. I think that still poses a big problem and challenge for the nation. We also need to look at parenting workshop and community development. We must speak to our parents about what is constituted as essential and effective parenting strategies. Do not abuse power, because parents often use the line, the Bible says that you must honor thy mother and thy father, but there's a second passage that says parents do not aggravate your children. We must tell things holistically and speak truth unto our children and to our parents, and start digitalizing our economy and our workflow. Everything is on the internet now. Everything is working online. Things you go to the library for, you can now access it on YouTube. You wanted an account, you go on YouTube, you have Coursera, you have all of these other platforms. So we need to look at ways of giving easy access to education and providing an incentives for people in the community. So let's say the fellas on the block, give them another $500 every month to come and learn a new skill, and give them some level of incentive so that they can come and learn, and then open the markets externally for them to trade between the region. CARICOM, that's what we're here for. Send them to Guyana, Grenada, and these other things so that they can go and work and live, and they can do what they have to do.
So what I hear you saying, and I'm just repeating so that we know our viewers, our listeners can internalize, because I think this is the most important part of the show. I think we typically come in every week, we talk a lot, but we don't specifically carve time out for the solutions. So what I hear you saying is youth employment programs are a must. We need to subsidize jobs and apprenticeships for young people. Community policing, you touched on that, Cletuson. Officers embedded in the communities to build trust and deter crime. Rehabilitation for offenders. Give young offenders a second chance through education and skill building programs. I don't know that you spoke about it now, but you spoke about it in the previous segment, where you go to jail for a 5 bag and then you come back and you can't get a job. School-based interventions, counselors and conflict resolution programs, recreational opportunities, especially in the summertime, fund sports, music and arts programs to engage youth, especially those young persons who are more sport inclined. Make it an option, as a job. Yes. Get them paid for our entertainment, because we go there and we watch them and they break a leg, they break an arm, and
you fend for yourself.
You fend for yourself, yes. Right? And what I admired most is stronger social safety nets. Ensure families have basic support so the youth aren't forced into crime. So we look at a holistic approach to crime. Just as a sidebar, you mentioned something about a top or ex acting Commissioner of Police having been accused of all of this heinous sexual assault and harassment charges against his own fellow female officers. How would you, two young men, feel if one of those females happened to be your wife, your girlfriend, or somebody that, your best friend, let's say? How would you feel if that was one of that person, one of those persons meant something to you and found themselves in that situation?
Honestly, this will lead to probably another criminal situation.
No, we laugh about it. Yeah,
it will be war, because you're not going to touch my wife, you're not going to touch my daughter, you're not going to touch my sister, and I don't care if you're you're not going to touch my people. I will make sure I take legal action and take the entire Royal St. Lucia Police Force down, including the ministers. Because how can you let that happen and then now make somebody feel uncomfortable and still have them have their jobs? But then now, if my wife or my daughter or my sister decide to speak out, they end up getting fired, dismissed, or something like that. No, you're going down. Everybody's going down.
And people don't understand the psychological effect that have on people, whether it be a male or female that's been sexually assaulted. I mean, that carries on until life. I mean, you meet people and they speak to you about the experience of being raped or being sexually harassed, and it hurts them. That's something they will die thinking of. So, and I mean, some people think because he's a police officer, he's the commissioner, he can't be touched. I mean, exactly.
And nobody's above the Lord. You can be touched, and we saw that with Lucifer. If he can go down, you can go down too.
Very well, and so that's why we need to wear our orange and march against the injustices in this land. Yes. Now we talked about crime. Let's talk about a little bit about cost of living. Joshua, we'll start with you. What immediate steps should be taken to ameliorate the rising cost of living?
Get rid of this health and security levy. It's not essential and it's posing a risk to our businesses. Lower the tax rate from 12.5. We can go down to 10 or maybe 8 to make it much easier for our citizens. Start digitalizing our economy so people can work from home and they don't have to pay so much for bus fare and for clothing and for so many different things to go to work. And start incorporating young and new economies of scale where we start having incorporations and partnerships rather than promote individual things from the youth economy. Promote incorporation so we can access greater funding from the Caribbean Development Bank and start putting locations in place for those businesses to be able to rent and start creating opportunities for jobs and development on a local and a national scale. We've seen it with Johannes Dujour when he created the fertilizer from the seaweed. We know the seaweed has been a problem and he's created one aspect of the solution, now manufacturing globally. Coconut oil is another big thing. We have coconuts in our backyards every single day. Let's try to do something with that and export to the United States. Let's try and be innovative in our own way than following the same rubric. And government needs to provide incentives for agriculture, for youth development, for education, some level of incentives that we promote entrepreneurial development and make sure that our citizens are the primary focus than giving all of our spaces to these big corporations that are coming here.
Just so you make it hard to speak after you.
You know, he's just rattling. It's like, and St. Lucia, they are not privy to the questions because some of these questions I'm making up on the fly as they speak. I'm questioning them. I'm asking. We're engaging. We're discussing, and this young man is just rattling those answers off the top of his head. And I'm using AI to take notes, and I don't think my AI can keep up, especially this last question. I don't think it can keep up because he was just rattling this off, and it tells us that the cost of living is a bread and butter issue for all of St. Lucians. All of us, whether young, old, or in between, rising cost of living affects us all.
But Joshua made a lot of points. I mean, I agree with everything that he said. I don't think there's much that he left out, but I'll also chime in and go to our previous conversations when we spoke about the marijuana and said stuff that we import. I mean, there's so many local stuff that we don't need to import out there. We could actually export it, and I think that we should utilize our farmers some more because they have their products that they by the market every day might not get sold that much, that we could utilize them, send their stuff overseas, help them generate some more money. Also, the gas prices are ridiculous in this country. It's ridiculous, whether cooking gas and fuel, ridiculous. So I think that's stuff that the government will work on. And like you said, this 2.5 levy,
It have to go.
I don't see what they said it was going to do. I don't see it happening.
Health and security.
Because healthcare is at an all-time deplorable condition. Security.
Don't ask for security.
Boy,
I mean, we had 3 days ago, we had a shooting in the
hot
Derek Walcott Square, man. I mean, seriously, there is no square footage on this island that is untouchable by hooligans who have a beef to settle, a score to match. Not one square footage of this country is bad.
And you know it's bad where it gets to a point where it's just another body. You know, it reaches that stage where it's just another body.
Now, you said that it's just another body, and when my husband is so desensitized to things sometimes, especially when it comes to crime and stuff like that. He's seen a lot. But when he tells you that these two young men lay on that ground, one deceased, one dying, and the one who is hurt, who's still breathing, turns in his pain to look at his brethren and hold his hand. Yeah. It tells you there is a heart beating in the chest of these young men, and it hurts. It hurts, St. Lucia. I don't have kids, but I can just imagine how a mother feels seeing her son on the ground, and there's nothing she can do about it. Seeing you liming with your partner, and you get shot, and your concern is not for yourself, but for your partner that's on the ground, knowing that he's probably dead because he probably doesn't even know that he has expired at that point. Right. But seeing his inert body and having to deal with that, knowing that you survived. I remember a few years ago, there were twins who were shot, identical twins. They were shot and one survived. I cannot imagine the pain that this young man has to go through every day, knowing that his womb mate is no longer his planet mate, no longer his island mate, no longer his liming buddy. You understand? Knowing that you didn't have to look in a mirror to see your image, and that is gone. St. Lucians, parents, teachers, politicians, ministers, leaders, we have to stop and take stock. Because even those that we paint with a brush, a tarnished brush, they have compassion. So why can't we? Why can't we care? People think it's not good in this country, It's not good. I implore you to send a strong message out to our leaders. Wear something orange every day. Whether it's your water bottle, your pencil, whether it's like Joshua has it on his wrist, whether it's your earrings, whatever it is, whether it's you tie your hair, whether you tie it on your car, you tie it on your house, you tie it on your shoe, whatever you do, wear something orange to send a clear message out there that enough is enough. Enough is enough. Our young people are dying. Even our most sacred and venerated spaces are being watered with the blood of our young people. And you think you are removed from it because it has not yet hit your backyard. You're dreaming. You're dreaming. But anyway, we are not ending the show. I promise you it's not ended yet. But there are certain things that I feel passionate about. And when I think of the hurt a mother has, having carried a child for 9 months, and some of us didn't carry the child for 9 months because that child's life was in jeopardy, and you have a preemie baby, and then somebody comes and just snatches that life. You're not God.
And it kind of shows the perspective that it's like yin and yang. There is good in every evil, and there's evil in every good. And the thing that we fail to realize is that you must know who you are around. Because a lot of times the people who are also some of the victims are friends of the people that they are targeting, and they themselves are left with the ramifications. I had a friend several years ago from secondary school. He dropped out when we were in Form 2. Around my Form 4 year, I got a call in December telling me he's dead. He got caught in a crossfire. So it wasn't even him they were targeting. He was just in the area at the wrong time and lost his life. So we must be privy to the people that we're hanging around, because you cannot have a friend and you say you care about that friend and you're engaging in things that you're not supposed to, and then you have that friend around you. Because who knows if they were targeting one and then the other one got shot because they were the friend, and now the friend died and lost their lives. It's kind of like this: when somebody gets in a car accident, usually the driver survives and the passenger passes away, but the passenger was not behind the wheel, but they end up losing their lives. So are we driving Helen, where our passengers are losing their lives for the reckless driving of the driver.
So I hear you saying for cost of living solutions, possible solutions, subsidies for essentials, reduce the VAT on food, transportation, and perhaps utilities, because that's very important. Yes. If you can't pay your electricity bill or your water bill, you have issues. Yeah, you can't pay to take your children to school. Well, there's no VAT, I think, on transportation. But if we keep the cost of living down and we can subsidize transportation, then for those of us who have to go to brick and mortar, whether it's school or work, it'll be more economically viable and more productive, because more money is in our pockets means that we can spend more money on food and essentials for our children. We didn't touch on affordable housing, but that was one of mine. Build subsidized housing for young families. You know, we have teenagers having children, and sometimes their parents have put them out, or sometimes the home that they come from cannot, it's bursting at the seams, can no longer sustain or house them. They're homeless, or they have to go into the ghettos and just squat somewhere. So subsidize affordable housing. Right, we talked about that in earlier. Youth entrepreneurship grants. I know we have the youth youth economy. I don't think it's doing enough. I think we need to provide for.
You got some.
I got a lot of backlash about the youth economy the last time I spoke about it.
It's not enough, because I know a lot of people who tell me the form that you have to. It's so onerous. They don't even understand some of the things they're asking twice and three times. They don't understand it. And I remember the last time I did a stint in Senate, we were told, that even 45-year-olds can benefit just because you're no longer technically youth. You could still benefit as long as your plan is sound. Based on that, I know at least 2 young women who were over the age of 35 got shut down. They got shut down, and they came to me and said, "Laura, didn't this?" And I said yes, and they got shut down. And the waiting, some of them, the waiting period is so long, it's onerous. You're waiting, and your business, So we talked about agriculture. We talked about incentivizing agriculture such that we we can diversify our crops. We talked about gas, reducing on the price of gas so that persons can get to and from work. Some of us need a vehicle. Like me, my work, I need a vehicle. I cannot depend on public transportation because of the work that I do. I need a vehicle, and that drives up the cost of the service that I provide because of the higher cost of living. Did I miss anything?
No, I think... Oh, one more thing I wanted to add was also looking at renewable energy. We must look at renewable energy, especially for hybrid vehicles, for those with the gas prices. We need to look at creating new infrastructure, especially as housing, as we get hybrid or electric vehicles, so that it can be more cost effective. Solar panels on our roofs to maybe not power the house, but at least power the garage or where the car is, so that we can get to work and back. So I think that's something we can do. I see it by JQ in Grocery. I see they have a port to plug in vehicles, but I think that's another thing that we need to look at, especially with these high gas prices that we have.
Something else that I forgot to mention, even while we have the entrepreneurship, the youth economy and whatnot, training for startups. And I'm not talking about a little mom and pop shop where you just sell over the counter. I'm talking about real training for startups, for persons who have innovative ideas that are different, that differentiates the service or the product that they offer, but they have no idea as to how. And I applaud Marcella Johnson for her reels that she does on Facebook with regards to informing people of financial tips, that they need to be aware of when going into starting business. Let's now talk about living wage. We have a living wage policy, or maybe a minimum wage. Let's not say a living wage. We want to raise the minimum wage to match inflation. But can our economy sustain an increased living wage? Because right now, smaller businesses are struggling. And I know a number of them who have already started releasing people because they cannot afford the increased wage bill. How can we create policies? And again, I think it goes back to rising cost of living. We need the prices in the stores to drop.
Right.
VAT being an onerous burden on the backs of poor people. So said Kennedy Anthony when he was Prime Minister. He said it was an onerous tax and then turned around and brought it up, put VAT on our backs, 15%. Then they disparaged Alan Chasney for dropping it to 12.5%. So much so they added a tax of 2.5. The 2.5 he took off, they added it back. They found a creative way. So if you could find a creative way to add tax, you can find a creative way to remove tax. We talked about financial literacy campaigns, teaching youth how to save and invest and budget. And one we didn't talk about, public-private partnerships, encourage businesses to invest in community programs, because we know when there is buy-in, there's skin in the game, the business does better. Yeah? So let's talk about a little bit about healthcare. What sort of reforms do we need? We'll start with you this time, Joshua.
Okay, so we need to look at a national healthcare policy that is not just, and I applaud our political leader Alan Chasney for the $75,000 per person to get the health insurance. I think long term we need to have a universal healthcare, and what that requires is that international agencies must come and partner with St. Lucia's government to ensure a sustainable healthcare system that is free for all. I believe that we can partner with our Taiwan sister nation. We can partner with CARICOM to establish regional hub hospital that is state-of-the-art and efficient for healthcare, and part with the cannabis movement that can provide some sort of relief in medication that we have primary here in St. Lucia as a manufacturing agent that will be a cost lower standard than any other nation, so it will be efficient for us. I think that we also need to look at publicizing our hospitals, making it part of the public sector, because as much as we want it privately owned, the cost is always going to be on us. So we need to have at least, let's say, 45% government, 55% public sector, so that they can also pump the funds into it, and in return we can provide their clientele with health insurance for their workplaces to ensure that they are covered in the work environment. So you know that your mother working for this industry, she has health insurance, and then she can add you to the health insurance, so now you're covered as well. So things that are beyond the hospital grant or beyond government grant, you are also covered as well from major agencies like the World Bank and the Caribbean Development Bank, to make sure that you are efficient. This can go in line with our goals as Commonwealth, as health. Everybody should have the right to health. So even when we look at the healthcare system, it is not a money-making system. It is a debt system, which means you're always going to owe. But let us not owe as much as we should owe. Let us make sure that whatever we're owing is in the purpose and interest of our people, because you cannot run a country and you don't have debt. There will be debt somewhere, and the public sector is a debt sector, but you have to have a manageable debt system that repays. And that's what we lack in St. Lucia, the repaying aspect. We owe too much to run our healthcare system.
So you spoke about the policies, but then what about, okay, you're being admitted to the hospital, there's not enough beds at the hospital, there's not enough doctors, and we know we have a huge problem right now with doctors resigning from the hospital. I mean, what good does that do us? You do a surgery today and they tell you, you know what, we can't keep you because we don't have enough beds, we have to send you home.
Increasing the risk of infections and all of that.
Exactly. Makes no sense.
We're running out of time, but these are some powerful solutions that, if implemented, they could create lasting change for our nation. I specifically like the one that you talked about with the healthcare, with the public-private partnership. That kind of thing is very, very important. Even with universal healthcare, as it stands, we are told there is universal health care, particularly for pregnant mothers and for the older people 80 and above, where you've already outlived your 70. But even then, diabetic patients can't get the diabetic medication at the hospitals and the health centers, because the health centers don't have dispensers or pharmacies. It puts a tremendous burden on our central hospitals and whatnot. So we need mobile clinics or better equipped health centers in the communities that would relieve the stress on our central hospitals, right? Closing remarks.
So I would encourage St. Lucians to wear their orange. Now, the orange is not just for the gas prices. The gas is just the primary focus, but that will lead to all the secondary components, such as the food, the healthcare system, the housing situation, the education situations. These issues are beyond political means, and it's sad that we have to come on the political platform to air those grievances, because we don't have shows catered for young people to speak about these issues. And at the same time, the politicians who may want our support now see us as a nuisance when we do decide to come in the political arena and challenge the authority, because you believe that we're too inexperienced. Age is just a number. Maturity comes with wisdom and prayer. Once you understand your focus and your anointing, you are driven to purpose and you are driven to prosperity. So do not undermine me and watch my age or watch our age or watch the youth's age and believe that we are ignorant. We are fully focused, we are fully ready, and we are fully capable of taking the mantle to lead a nation. There are several young people who have done it, and there are several young people who can do it again. So I'm not sitting here just as another voice. I'm sitting here as a future politician, a future minister, a future senator, and a future person who will crumble the foundation of this ignorant government and this ignorance that is plaguing our nation. And I will remind you that the child that you are neglecting in the household will be the anchor that you need later on in life.
Amen. Now, Cletuson, I should have let you go first, because how can you come after that?
You can't top that. You can't top
How can you top this? But give it a try. Give it a try. Final remarks.
Okay, so I just like to urge all St. Lucians to stand up unitedly. Don't be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid to be criticized about what you talk about. Speak about the high gas prices. Speak about the high cost of living. Speak about the bad healthcare system we have in St. Lucia. Speak about what's bothering you. I mean, we shouldn't be afraid to speak about what's going on. And as young people as well, I feel like we should educate ourselves more about what's going on in our country, because a lot of us really don't know. I like to say, don't say politics is not your business. Politics has a lot to do with you and your lifestyle. So I urge you, stand up, wear your orange, and we pray for a better St. Lucia.
Amen. Thank you guys for these insightful contributions. It's clear, St. Lucia, that addressing crime, the cost of living, and healthcare requires a multifaceted approach with young people at the center of the solutions. Tonight's discussions highlighted the interconnected nature of these challenges. Crime, the cost of living, and healthcare are not isolated issues. They're symptoms of a systemic neglect. The insights from Cletus and Joshua have been both sobering and inspiring. And it is a call for policymakers to not just hear the youth, but act. Solutions exist, but they require political will, community engagement, and sustained effort. We had a few actionable takeaways: introduce youth-centered crime prevention programs, advocate for subsidies and financial relief for students and entrepreneurs, reform the healthcare system to prioritize mental health and preventive care, especially in our rural communities, launch skill building and mentorship programs to tackle youth unemployment and crime. Again, I want to thank you, Cletuson and Joshua, for your perspectives. To our viewers, it's time to demand policies that reflect our needs as a nation. As we sign off, remember to keep these conversations alive. Change starts with all of us. Let us right the wrong. Next week, we will talk about more female-centric issues as it pertains to crime and the rising cost of living and the deplorable healthcare solutions as we celebrate or observe 16 days of activism against violence against women. Until next time, adieu.